don't start on time, then we don't have any chance.
Good morning, everybody. Do you want to come and take your seats? You just so obediently all went quiet then, it quite surprised us. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2020 Academic Archers.
We're so pleased to see you all on this bloody freezing, cold, wet morning in Reading.
We've got a lot to get through today, so a couple of words from myself and Nicola, but then we'll get on to proceedings. There's a bit of housekeeping. First of all, if this is going to work, is the clicker working?
I'm probably in the way.
Oh, here we go. So, I need to stand where you are. So, you may have noticed in your packs we've had a sponsor this year, which is Rewilding Ambridge. There was a little bit of a mix-up with the logo, as you can see, so I don't know what was going on there. But you'll see, if those of you that were in the Mall last night, we've got some of those pansies from Asda from them, so happily plant all of those. We've also got out the back, we've got, oh, I love Archer's Cats so much, it's such a lovely Facebook group. They have calendars which you can put a donation in, say, raising money for Cats Aid in Menorca. So there's copies of the calendars at the back there. And where is our Archer's Cats person? Standing here in front. Do you want to stand so people see? That's our Archer's Cats delegate in the room today. Lovely to see so many of you at the Merle yesterday as well. It's just, oh, I love that museum so much. We had a really good talk from Small Robot Company talking about robotic farming and the pitch that we all know should have won the Conservation Trust monies. That was fantastic. The Merle is open all the way through the weekend. It is open when we close here tomorrow as well. So if you haven't been, or if you want to go back, it is open there. Go and fill your boots with absolutely amazing English rural life and Archer's pop-up exhibitions.
Does everybody know what these words are? Yes? They are the Academic Archers' values. Be curious, be generous, and be joyful. And if we had a school song... So, we don't think we need to say be kind in this environment, but it's amazing how quickly, once you get home and onto your keyboards and screens, sometimes things come across as not so curious, generous, or joyful. So, there we are. This is my very serious face. Right. If you were at the University of Liverpool in London conference, please stand up.
If you can stand up.
If standing is okay for you, yes. Oh, very good. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's amazing. So we had 100 in the room, and I said we'd have about 20 here. Thank you very much, the early adopters. You may sit down. If you were at the University of Lincoln conference, please stand up. If standing is comfortable for you. Hello, everybody.
Oh, the masses are growing.
The masses. Stuck with us for 4 years. And to sit down again. If you were at the British Library, please stand up. BL, British Library. Welcome, very good. And down again. And if you were in Sheffield last year, please stand up. And sit down again. If you've been at all of them, stand up. Michael Rowan, Peter Shield. Oh. Sarah Blaker, yes, of course. Helen Burrows. Our people. I know. Yes. It's aged us all, believe. And if this is your first time and you feel in any way comfortable, please make yourselves known in the same way. So we very much hope that you'll join this fellow band of adventurers, reprobates. Thank you guys. I mean, let's face it, we spend hundreds of hours doing this madness. And we only do it because we love you. There we are.
Right, so we have not printed out programmes because it's an absolute waste of paper, but this is what our Saturday looks like. We're going to go through to just after 5, if we stick to time, with the Dumpty Dum, the ceremonial Dumpty Dum sing-along recording to send into Royfield in the team, and we have the award ceremony, and also feedback. Next week we're going to do a piece about the gym storyline, and they're asking the question, do you think this was handled well? So we're going to put that question out to you, and you en masse go yes or no, and we're going to send that into feedback as our collective response to that question. We then go on to the campus down the road, Park House Bar. We can go, I mean, the bar is open basically, doesn't it? We can gather down there at 6. Those that have tickets for dinner, that's also where the dinner is, and that will start at around 7. Those that you don't have tickets for the dinner, they serve food in the Park House Bar anyway, so if you did want to stick around for that. And then after dinner, the bar is open till like 1 o'clock or something, I think. And I do know that some of you were out quite late last night, so there's a hardcore massive out there. But of course, our after-dinner speaker is the amazing Lucy Freeman from Dumpty Dum. She will be hilarious. I know there's a lot of Dumpty Dum listeners in the audience at the moment, and really looking forward to welcoming Lucy along to that. So, you've had this in your delegate pack, and it's posted on the Facebook group as well, but this is where we are, and that's where we're going this evening, and it's also where the Cedars Hotel is for you as well to be anchored. This is the building that you need to look for when you get onto campus. So that's the venue, that's Park House, that's where the bar is, that's where the meal is later. This is Sunday, mostly taken up by the live Archers Omnibus Listen, but we do have some very special papers with a religious theme for us tomorrow morning as well. Right, my part of today, Nicola's going to start with her first paper, but my part of the day is to do the Archers Assembly. Let me get my papers. We've got some brilliant quotes from this one. So an assembly is basically this. We're modelling this from the Citizens' Assembly. Some of you may have heard these are happening with climate at the moment, up and down the country. So it's a group of people, cross-section of the population, brought together to discuss an issue, look at the evidence either side of it, and basically come up then with a set of recommendations that people may, consider actions, what have you. This is how it works. Randomly selected citizens hear from experts and stakeholders, submissions to the public, they have a conversation, they vote on recommendations, and then it goes to government review. So, we've randomly selected ourselves. We have appointed ourselves the experts. We have pretty much made up our minds already, actually. And I don't know whether there's even any point having a vote. But the government reviews and implements, we're going to post this onto the Ambridge website, so they'll have all of our feedback on what we think about the parenting. Because this is what we are talking about in the Assembly today. We are putting the parents on trial. These are the ones that we're going to talk about, bitch about through the day. And some of you would have seen the post I did on Facebook just to kind of bring some of this sort of content to the fore. So we had over something like 263 separate submissions. So I've been diligently crunching all of that data. All of my slides for this as well, an absolute love letter to Plarchers and British Synthetics. And if anybody knows that person, please say a massive thank you, because there is literally a scene for anything that you want to talk about. The question is, are whoever an example of good parenting? There's a kind of universal no, actually, to a lot of them. But we're going to go through. So,
I mean, the supplementary could just be, are they called Archer? In which case,
yes, there is that as well, yes. So, in answering this, there's one rule that I did have, and it's not often, you put such a hard and fast rule against any kind of academic research, but I didn't want any of the responses to be, they all need counselling. One, because there was a paper on that later. But two, I think we can all agree that they do. So let's put that one to the side and we'll have a different discussion completely. So the first group that we're going to talk about, the matriarchs, Jill and Peggy. Now there were some really good quotes on this one. And I just want to make sure that we don't missed them. Bear with me a moment. Right, yeah, so 64 comments in total on Jill and Peggy, which got the highest, this is the highest number of people that responded to this. They were described as the epitome of smug, complacent, conservative, and self-obsessed. Both were thought to be over-controlling in their own ways, resulting though in keeping their children tied to the apron string. On the other hand, though, some thought them just ordinary women of their generation, not perfect, but products of their time. So many respondents cited Peggy's manipulative and divisive use of her money as her parenting style. She's a bit too fond of playing Lady Bountiful, one person said, and she's very mischief-making with her money as well. And people noted when she's done this to Tony in particular, he's been really sidelined and belittled by his mother, which is not a very good thing to do. There was some sympathy for Peggy, though, with her first marriage cited here, and the emotional, the emotional and literal sort of heavy lifting that she had to do in that relationship. But on the whole, she was seen as too honest, i.e. letting one child or grandchild know the other is preferred, and also as a judge of character, her fawning over Rob and his outward attributes of class and breeding that she saw was seen as a bad mark against her. One mention of Peggy taking in Kate, and arguably how she has the measure of Kate, has put some boundaries in there, was seen as a good thing. It's basically saying that Kate's parents hadn't been able to do that themselves. But the situation with Tony resulting in him getting some backbone as well. And those people also said that she'd raised two very, very capable daughters. There was less vitriol perhaps directed at Jill, but she was criticised for her smother care of David in particular, which was also seen then to have an impact on his parenting style to his kids as well, and more on those later. She was seen to use emotion to manipulate her children to doing what she wanted. Many mentioned her lack of support for Shula when divorcing, her capacity to ignore what's going on in the family dynamic as well, between David and Kenton, for example, and to not do what was actually within her gift to try and help those two brothers get along. Sympathy was expressed for her in terms of her living in the shadow of grace, and a lot of people said they had happiness for her having found Leonard and her new love, and that really releasing her from the Brookfield kitchen and sort of freeing some of her personality traits that are put in for that. And some saw that as a positive thing, others not. But as one commentator said, what is the correlation between feeling some sympathy for their lives and their capacity to parent? And that brought up a huge debate on these Twitter ones. So this is where we're at. There's more on the for side than the against of are they a good parent or not. But is this really weighted appropriately just because one list is longer than the other? Is the shorter list actually got some more significant things on it? I don't know. What do we think? Are they good examples of parenting?
Okay, so yes, hands up. Anyone want to defend the matriarch? Brenda? Yeah. Claire? Oh yeah, some support.
And who's against? Oh. And then so there's a few people then that are in the middle that are a bit. Yeah, okay. No, we can do the next one. So the next one was David and Ruth.
Ooh, David and Ruth.
Oh no, sorry, no, we'll go on. So we'll do David and Ruth later. Okay, so some very short bits of housekeeping, because I completely forgot to do that earlier. There's some posters that people have done of their conference sites at the back there. Go and have a look at them. They're brilliant. We've got coat racks on either side to put your coats in there. The toilets at the back to the left. And there's some sort of there's toilets out through those doors as well, just in and around the corner. Rob is here from our venue. He's in the building. Where is it? There's Rob there. There's our University of Reading contact. So any questions which are sort of venue specific, Rob will be your person to go to. There you go, all right over to Rob. And if you need help with anything, anybody with one of these on is one of our volunteers. So they have a copy of the running order, they know where things are, and we're going to station those people as well. When we leave the building to get down to the other campus, they'll be there to direct you on the way to get down to there. And I think that's it for housekeeping. No fire alarm, is there, Rob? No, very good. Okay, click off you go.
The actual, real, serious way that you've got the rosette as being best in share. So, our first session this morning is on family, power and influence, and it does link with Clara's Archers Assembly bits that are going to come back throughout the programme. But this is kind of where we began with academic archers, so if you indulge me, this is the 2020 network, One In, One Out, by me. So, I haven't done this since Lincoln, by the way. I haven't actually done the big thing, so, please all, applaud wildly. More of a Mexican wave effect, do you think? No, you're all right. Okay. So, in order to remind myself what my entire academic archers project has been, I actually wrote the paper this time in advance, because when we write the books, we have to do the papers and all the rest of it. So here we are. This is the, from the paper version. It is called One In, One Out. And that, my friends, could be described as the inside of my head, much of the time. As you all know, I'm a network analyst, or just a nutter. But the point is, can anyone remember from Lincoln that I did all this theory for ages? Yeah, and have you found yourself transformed and looking at networks in social life ever since? Oh, very good, nodding. You were completely unmoved by it, it's done nothing. Right, so the basic tenet of looking at networks in social life is that the ways in which things are connected is the most important property. So there's schools of thought that say that we've moved beyond purely hierarchical or market-based forms of organisation towards networks that can be chaotic and it can be unclear where power and authority reside in a network. So that's sort of the basics. But yes, you can think about networks either in terms of human to human, so I didn't work on the kinship networks of Ambridge, which are all people, except Bartleby, obviously. But also you can bring in an actor to network theory perspective, which puts objects in the loop. And the reason that that's important in Ambridge is because, the characterisation of things that are non-human, Bartleby, Hayden Barrow, the Bull, they've got a life too, and Felicity's nodding, given that her interest in the material culture of Ambridge. She came up with 100 objects that defined Ambridge, and it's perfectly possible to put those objects into a network with who they interact with, even if they don't have agency in that way. So that's enough hardcore social theory. This is the last time I did it, and it was about 1 million slides, wasn't it? And it's on YouTube if you'd like to, go back over the greatest hits. So essentially, I'm not going to cover the same territory as I did in that paper, so However, can anyone remember this diagram? Remember this? So, having said that networks are the basic form of social organisation in which you can look for power and authority, and you can look for other things too, innovation or diffusion, this is a sort of conceptual framework, highfalutin A, and so what we have here is that the basic thing that weaving networks becomes then the work of most people in most worlds, and that can be professional, family, whatever. So this just demonstrates some different phases of a network. So here, that's scattered fragments. That's not really a network. So if this is the Ambridge network, the only people on there would be the Gills. Who else? Kathy and Jamie. In fact, that's Kathy and Jamie there. But who else hasn't spoken for a while? Who else is right out there? Usha, yes, where'd they put her? Usha, Carol Tregoran. Yes, she and She and Anna can be that one. But the point is, in a scattered fragment network, it's kind of a nascent network. They aren't connected, right? So if you are not linked, then you just have little, as I say, that would be the gills. There's 6 of them, you know. I know. Right. After a certain point, if you are trying to bring people together, if that's your objective, into a network, you can generate a hub and spoke network. And that's what that is. So all the difference with this one is that you've taken this one and you've put a connector in the middle, right? And in terms of innovation, people say that's a weak network because who's got all the pressure in this network? It's all in the centre. So this is both a powerful but unsustainable position, right? If it's just you holding everyone together, how long is that going to be sustainable? I mean, think of it in terms of a WI group or any kind of informal group you've ever been part of. If somebody runs to the middle, puts up a flag and says, this is about me, you've got a couple of years at most before they start to burn out and burn through the energy that they had. And that can be disastrous for everybody. If, after a certain amount of time you've been developing a network, kind of effectively, you have different areas of power base within that network, and that is the small worlds theory. Now, normally, most social phenomenon, you're looking at small worlds. And if the small worlds are better integrated, then you've got a better chance of being kind of more together. And this is the core and periphery stage, which, that's sort of utopia in a sense. So, scattered fragments, hub and spoke, core and periphery. Okay, very good revision session. Right. So, wherever human association is examined, we can see what could be described as thick spots. No, I'm not talking about Kenton. Relatively unchanging clusters or collections of individuals, who are linked by frequent interaction and often by sentimental ties. So that's describing the network of Ambridge, frequent interaction. Hello, you two. Rather than sending you a WhatsApp on your birthday, here I am with a card that I had to buy in the village shop and then walk to your house and come in, introduce myself. Right. Frequent interaction and sentimental ties. And as I say, we're being fairly mean about the matriarchs and other sets of parenting in the Oxford Assembly, but there are sentimental ties at play in Ambridge, so that's that. But it's not just that. That's the sort of property of the network, the kind of structural bit. The effect and the consequences, significance within networks is given to individuals who act as connectors within a network, boundary spanners who connect networks, information brokers, and people who are peripheral. So rather than take me to your leader who's the big boss in a hierarchy, or take me to the cheapest thing in a market, these are the sort of, winning bits in a hierarchy or a market. Actually, your connection to other people can be the kind of way that you develop or win in a network. And this paper, the strength of weak ties, is sort of, as a sociologist, I just think children in primary school should know this stuff, but, I don't believe in sociology anymore. So, to keep myself vaguely on track, this is what the paper's going to look like in the end. So we're starting off with the small world of Ambridge. You lot really are all related, aren't you? A quote from Lord Kitchener in the pub when someone was told it was, they're my second cousin. So, then we'll talk a little bit more about power and authority, and then the new bit for this year, difficult enough, is that we're linking all of this network stuff to how far there is social mobility in the village, both upward and downward. So our lovely publishers, Emerald, who we like very much, were very keen on a book about the fall of the House of Aldridge, which is what we're sort of engaged in writing next. But more broadly, we've talked loads over the years about actually Ambridge, the Archers should be renamed the Grundys and their oppressors. Quote from Neil Kinnock, their oppressors. Ambridge is an everyday story of class delineation. The Grundys can't get ahead, ever. the relative downward social mobility we've seen from the Aldridges since Jennifer was forced to give up the Albion kitchen. When we interviewed Alison Hindell for the last book, the Gender, Sex and Gossip book, she described, it was quite mad really, if you've got the gender book, go back to the interview, she said, oh yeah, we were trying to think of a way of putting the Aldridges in trouble, but then we realised exactly how hard it was going to be to actually imperil them, because they were so secure. You know, they would be insured against all eventualities, so it had to be literally something enormous like that to destroy their sort of status and position in the village. And it's all been a bit confusing about why, have they bought another house, are they going to, you know. Whereas, to destroy Emma, you could do it on a Wednesday, piece of piss. Because as we know, the script writers, like as in Greek drama, you know, they put the players of Ambridge and then destroy them for our sport. And if you, this is all the stuff that I ended up writing over the years. Okay, all I can remember is Clara going, do we have the draft off? But actually, in spite of myself, I wrote all that stuff about this. So well done me. I put that in to remind myself. So as I say, the notion of intergenerational equality and its relationship to kin-keeping in the village of Ambridge is one of the things that I'm going to get onto. So there we are. So, I know, I was too excited. Here is where I unveil what the network for 2020 looks like. And it looks like that. The small worlds of Ambridge, centred, as we know, around the dominant families in the village. This is the 2020 network. And just for continuity, everybody on there is alive. Relationships with children survive divorce, but relationships with the other person don't. So, for example, Dan would still link to Shula and Alistair, but Alistair would no longer link to Shula. And this is without the ancestors, because if you remember, the full Ambridge network only makes sense, and they're only all related if you go right back to Jack and Phil and Dan and Doris, because Jack, first husband of Peggy, is the son of Dan and Doris, and that's the why Auntie Peggy is Auntie Peggy. Oh, that's right, isn't it? So